Do you feel that you and Lady D have a lot in common?
I think part of what speaks to so many people about her, especially underrepresented communities, is that she is so unequivocally and unapologetically herself, and she doesn't let anyone make her feel small or make her feel less than. She fights for herself. She believes that she's worthy and doesn't let anyone tell her different. So I think that there's a lot to really admire and aspire to be within that.
Do you feel that you have a lot of those same qualities?
Someday. Maybe there's a part of me that allowed that to come out with Lady D. We are all, I'm sure, racked by our own self-doubt and insecurities at every minute of every day. So.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Alicyn's Wonderland, the show that takes you inside the world of animation and video games. And wow, 6 months after moving to Los Angeles, Maggie Robertson was cast in Resident Evil, Lady Dimitrescu, one of the most amazing video game franchises of all time and such an iconic role. And we're here with her today on Alicyn's Wonderland. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi.
Maggie!
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. I'm so glad we were finally able to make this happen.
I know. It had been in the works for quite some time, but here we are.
You are. Welcome to Wonderland.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We have a lot of mutual friends, but this is actually the first time we've ever met in person.
Yes.
Which is pretty
Agreed.
incredible.
It's such a small community as well, so it's kind of amazing that we lasted this long without running into each other.
Yeah. Well, and you moved here in 2019, is that right?
I did.
So just a little bit of time before we had the global pandemic, which shut everything down. How was that transition for you?
From moving to LA or moving into a global pandemic?
I guess
many transitions have occurred.
First LA.
The LA transition, quite honestly, could not have been better. I feel very lucky. And it was one of those moments where the first second I got to LA, there was just this sense of flow as I started to figure out where am I going to live? Who are my friends going to be? How am I going to get work? All of these things that usually take long, hard struggles to figure out fell into place rather seamlessly. So right from the get-go, I was kind of feeling like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to be here right now because things are falling into place in a way that I wasn't expecting. So then when I booked Resident Evil, it was just one other thing where I was like, whoa, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in this moment in my life. And so it was kind of bananas how seamless that transition was. I was certainly not expecting it to be that. And usually when people move to a new city, they say the first year is bananas, crazy hard. But I got really lucky. I found a great place to live, walked into a couple of established communities and friend groups, so I wasn't lonely, and then booked some pretty great jobs right away. So it all worked out. Now,
you moved here from London, is that correct? Where you were getting your master's?
Yes, I was doing my master's degree in classical acting, so lots and lots of Shakespeare, and then graduated end of 2018 and pretty much moved to LA right after that. I had like a month at home to collect myself, and then I was out the door again.
What was your time like in London?
In London? Magical, amazing, wonderful. It was the first time I had ever gotten an opportunity to just study acting full time without other distractions or other courses that I was taking, like in college. Which is, I realized, a privilege. It's so rare that we get an opportunity to do that. Usually we're pulled in 20 different directions and are just trying to survive and get through. So the opportunity to just sit down and just focus on craft, just focus on getting myself to be a better actor was really lovely. And I feel very grateful for that too. I have a lot to be very grateful for.
It's a good feeling. And probably one of the best, I think.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go get back to school for your master's?
It's so funny. I feel like acting was in many ways the last part of the arts that I decided to do, or I kind of railed against it for a long time where I didn't want to be an actor for whatever reason. So then I think as a result of that, I always felt behind and like I had to catch up to where other people were. And after college, even though I graduated with a degree in theater, I went back home. I was still deciding if acting was the thing that I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. Virginia.
Virginia, okay.
Well, moved around, but Virginia-ish. But yeah, I was still very much figuring out if acting was even the thing that I wanted to do. There were parts of it that I really liked, and then there were parts of it that I didn't really like.
Like what?
I was not a fan, and am still not a fan of competitiveness. I feel that there's always more than enough to go around, and especially within the theater community, there can be that kind of scarcity mindset. And I feel this with on camera sometimes too, that there is this scarcity mindset around knowledge, resources, and jobs. And the level of competition that happens behind the scenes, I didn't really feel like engaging with. So it was really more of the social component, as weird as that is to say, that was what prevented me or what held me back from committing to acting as a full-time profession. I loved the work itself. I loved working on shows and I loved the craft component of it, but it was the kind of outer trappings that were always the thing that I was like, I don't know if that feels good. I don't know if I want to do that full-time.
Yeah, especially Hollywood.
Especially Hollywood.
Towns.
Yeah, but that's why when I moved to LA and I got kind of thrown into the world of voiceover and motion capture, I feel that this community is so not characterized by any of that. There's such a wonderful, welcoming atmosphere where everyone I meet is like, oh, you're new? Here's all of this. What can I do to help you? How can I work with you on something? Or what can I point you to? Or listen to your demos, whatever. So I immediately felt like I found my community within voiceover and within performance capture, which was really nice. But yeah, so after college, I moved back to Virginia, moved in with my mom, and got real person jobs doing XYZ admin or whatever. And then realized I kind of didn't do any theater and realized that I was still miserable not doing acting. So then I started to try to dip my toe back into the regional theater scene within DC, which is actually a thriving theater community. It's really amazing. But again, I just felt like there was something holding me back from getting the roles that I wanted or achieving the level of success that I felt I was capable of. And I think because I'd always have one foot in and one foot out the door of acting, I felt like I needed to go back to grad school to just do acting and really make the conscious choice to do this and only this, that this was the thing I was going to stake my future on and say unequivocally, this is what I'm going to do. So that's kind of the purpose that grad school filled for me.
Wow. Yeah. What an amazing privilege.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So at that point, did you feel that you'd had more maturity under your belt?
Which I felt was helpful in grad school. I think a lot of people go right into more school after they get done with school. And I found it very helpful to have life experiences under my belt to go into that experience with and come out with the knowledge that, yeah, I'm deserving and I'm capable and I'm talented and I deserve to be in the rooms. And even if I'm not getting in them right away, I deserve to be here. Just because I don't book doesn't mean I'm not talented or XYZ, all of the other stories that we tell ourselves in this industry. So I felt like that helped me for sure, kind of brave the hardships of the industry and hearing no's all the time.
Right. And that is such a big part of what we do. I don't know that you can really describe that to anybody because it seems like, well, it's not rejection. It's certainly not hearing back from a project doesn't mean somebody called you up and said, you suck. We don't want you for that. Maybe that's rejection, but that doesn't happen. So, but yet, not, being selective for something that you feel you almost have to in acting, you put yourself into the role and you become that character for a certain period of time, at least for the audition. And then, if you don't get it, you can sometimes be left with an empty feeling of wondering why.
And it's not just that you don't get it, it's that you hear nothing. I think that's the hardest part is you don't know if it was good, if it was bad, if they liked it, if they hated it. So that's when your brain can go crazy and create all of these false narratives about what did or did not actually occur. And that's the dangerous part, I think.
So what was it like, the audition process for Lady D?
Well, in typical video game fashion, as I'm sure you know, I had moved to Los Angeles. I didn't have an agent, so I was just submitting myself to casting breakdowns that I saw on the various casting websites.
Oh, so it was like an open...
It was an open call. I think it was on something like LA Casting or something like that. And there was no information about what the game actually was. It was just video game. XY, here's the fake character name. Here's a fake breakdown of what the plot is. And it was just listed as voiceover, not performance capture, which I wouldn't have even known what that was if it had been listed. So had no idea what I was applying for. Sent in the application to audition, got the audition, and then I went in, and this should have been my first clue because it was advertised as voiceover, but they had me come in and do an in-person audition. So it felt very akin to theater, actually. But I was so new and naive. I was just like, okay, this is what they do. Okay.
And were you in a studio or was it in a different type of space?
It was in a room in the back of a restaurant.
That's so funny.
It was just so hilarious. And they had great food.
What would Lady D say about the food?
Divine. I don't know. But yes, so all of it was just me. It kind of was confirming me being like, okay, so this is just like, I'm just doing this to see if I like voiceover. I have no expectations on the outcome. I'm just dipping my toe in the water and see how I feel about it. But the audition itself felt very akin to theater and felt very theatrical. They wanted, unlike on camera auditions where you are having to operate within a set confined space within frame, they had the camera set far away and they were like, great, you have the whole space to play with. Feel free to improv, feel free to move around. So all of that, especially coming right out of my training program, I was like, oh, cool, playtime, let's go. And so felt that went really well. And then I don't know, like a month or weeks later, got a call back and it was similar stuff, very theatrical. This one had more of an improv component to it where they had me move around more as what the character would be like or improv scenes or moments, how she uses her, I think I didn't have the full specs of what she was. So anyway, improv component and her movement profile, her physicality had me kind of exploring those things with the director in the room. And then after that, I think I didn't hear back for a good long while to the point where I was like, I forgot all about this. And then they called me and offered me the role. And I was like, oh, cool. That's nice. Guess I'll do this.
This video game.
Yes, this video game, whatever that means. And then I got into we had a table read. And that was the first time that I clued in to the fact that something much larger is actually happening here because everyone in the room, there was just this palpable energy in the air. Everyone was excited and like whispering to each other. Some people, I guess, had figured out what game this was. And I overheard someone say, being a part of this franchise is a dream come true or something like that. The word dream come true was in there. And I was like, hold on. What do you mean? What's going on? This is just a nothing video game that I thought I was auditioning for, and it turned out to be Resident Evil Village. And yeah, so then I went home after the table read once I had my sides and my contract, and I Googled all the names that I could find in there and figured out what game it was.
Oh,
and
wow.
And then I was like, okay, did that, booked that. That feels good.
Amazing. Sounds like just perfect alignment.
Yes, exactly. So going back to that state of flow, I just fell into these things that then lined up so perfectly and moved me forward in the way that I wanted to be. So,
and you won the Game Award and the Golden Joystick Award for Best Performance. How did that change your life?
All of the aftershock waves of Lady D have changed my life. There's absolutely no aspect of my life that has remained the same, it feels like, which is kind of amazing to have a role that is so transformative. So winning those awards, especially once you've heard about how I got the dang audition, it's to go from moving to LA with nothing to now this, a role that has built a career for me and giving me notoriety and giving me a platform. It's totally mind-boggling. I still cannot believe it sometimes that this happened.
Were they specifically looking for non-voice actors? Is that why?
I think they were looking for height. And so for me, that was the exciting thing when I saw the breakdown, because so often my height is the thing that excludes me from roles, the thing that prevents me from booking something. So to have an opportunity where my height could be the thing that actually books me the job was really exciting.
And was that necessary for the mocap? That the height?
Yeah, I think I'm not an expert on how all of the animation behind the scenes works, but I believe that having someone a little bit taller was helpful to the animators in terms of scaling the characters.
Because she is so tall.
She's taller than everyone else. And so the fact that I was also taller than everyone else was helpful.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Do you feel that you and Lady D have a lot in common? I mean, obviously, she's the antagonist.
I know.
We love a good antagonist.
We love a good antagonist. And there are a lot of things that I really admire about her. I think part of what speaks to so many people about her, especially underrepresented communities, is that she is so unequivocally and unapologetically herself, and she doesn't let anyone make her feel small or make her feel less than. She fights for herself. She believes that she's worthy and doesn't let anyone tell her different. So I think that there's a lot to really admire and aspire to be within that.
Do you feel that you have a lot of those same qualities?
Oh gosh, no. I wish.
Some days.
Someday. Maybe there's a part of me that allowed that to come out with Lady D.
Yeah.
And deep inside. But yes, no, we're all, I'm sure, racked by our own self-doubt and insecurities at every minute of every day. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you any ways that you feel that she's very different from you?
Anyway, well, the violent murder is pretty different than me. Good to know. Yep. Different. I mean, the murder is a pretty big one. I think she's probably also way more luxurious than I am. She really values nice quality things, and I value those to a certain degree, but also clearly I like to be comfortable and I like to be a little potato.
Amazing.
So yeah.
So what was the experience like going to set and shooting?
Amazing. This is part of what changed my life about it is the second I got into the volume for our first day of shooting the performance capture portion of the role, I had that kind of lightning bolt moment that clicked in where I was like, oh, this is really exciting and challenging in a brand new way, but also feels very familiar. And I think that this is exactly what I need to be doing. So then after that, I kind of reoriented my career and my trajectory to be like, oh no, it's this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to plow forward over here because this feels good and some other areas of the industry maybe don't make me feel as good. So I'm going to keep doing the thing that makes me feel really great.
Can you explain for our viewers who aren't familiar with The Vault what that is?
Yes. So the volume is essentially a big, wide open room, or it doesn't necessarily have to be big. It's just an open room with cameras all around that are monitoring and intaking all of your physical data.
360 degrees.
360 degrees. And then you'll have a camera that they use that they can position anywhere for how they want to shoot the scene itself. But there's cameras all around you. Yeah. So that's what they use to film your body mechanics. Then they take that and that data and those analytics and use it within their animation. So if you quirk an eyebrow, your character will raise their eyebrow in the way that you did. And they're mirroring your muscle mechanics and all that jazz. So fascinating. Cool.
Wow.
But the volume, now you know.
And so was that shocking for you then to like be on a mocap set when you'd never done anything like that?
Well, that was kind of the weird part that was both so weirdly different, but also familiar. There's a lot of that felt very akin to theater and doing black box theater, where you have nothing to help you tell the story besides yourself and your body and your physicality. You can't rely on hair, makeup, costumes, props, set pieces to tell the story for you. You have to create it physically within your own body. And you have to endow these imaginary circumstances as real. And you have to believe them and allow those circumstances to sit in your very bones. Otherwise, an audience will not believe them. So that element felt very familiar, this kind of make-believe, imaginative component of the work that felt like it taps into the root of why so many of us want to become actors in the first place, which is just the sense of play and make-believe. It's very much all about that. But then you have the more technical components that are more akin to on camera or other things where
just
you do
even
kind of
wearing
have
the
to
suit, putting the dots on.
Yes, yeah. And so that certainly was a lot of me being like, okay, that's new, getting used to this. What do I do? How do I still tell the story authentically when I'm trapped in a weird suit with sensors all over my body and a big heavy helmet and a camera in front of my face that would be obstructing my view of the person in front of me. So you have to get kind of used to blocking out this thing in front of your eyeballs.
Were the other actors helpful?
So helpful, so welcoming. I was proud of myself. I think usually when I feel uncertain in a situation, I tend to go quiet and then I'm just trying to listen and absorb so that I can pretend like I actually know what I'm doing, which is not always helpful. But in this situation, I was very proud of myself because I went in and I was like, cool, I've never done this before. Everyone attention. I've never done this before. What do I need to know? And they, to their credit, were like, oh my gosh, you've never done this before. That's so amazing. Here's everything you need to know. So I felt like that really helped me, I guess, get over the embarrassment of being in a vulnerable position of not knowing something and just leap into a new challenge and not be afraid to ask questions if I needed to ask a question. There were some things where I needed to understand what the point of us doing it in this way was in order to make sure my performance was giving what they needed. So to have the freedom to ask those questions and not be afraid to look silly or stupid. I have a big fear of looking ignorant and looking stupid, so that I was proud of myself for not falling into that trap for once.
Wow. If you think about it, you didn't even have an agent at the time, is that right?
Oh, yeah. I had no one to ask the questions for me. I only had me.
So did you immediately start making calls? You're like, I
help
somebody who wants to represent me.
No, and I should have, but again, I was so afraid of the NDAs where I was like, I can't tell anyone that I'm working on this. Nobody can know. But yeah, ironically, my own mother can't know. Nobody knew. But yes, and that's also why having the cast members there who could be those resources for me and who I could talk to, especially when Lady D was going viral and we were still under NDA and I couldn't talk to anyone outside of the game about what was happening or how to start to prepare for what now I was realizing would be a really big role for me. They were so instrumental and so helpful in guiding me through that whole process of, okay, what does it mean when you book a major franchise game? Okay, now what does it mean when not only you've booked a major franchise game, but your character is becoming the most prominent character of that game? How do you prepare for that? So they were so helpful.
How do you prepare for that?
Well, I'm still figuring it out. It was a lot of getting used to social media. That was a component that I had never really gotten on board with before.
Were you on social before?
Technically, yes, but I was never really using it. And that still remains an area for me that I do kind of butt heads against sometimes.
A lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but it is a part of the job now, for better or for worse. So coming to terms with that and finding a way to do that works for me and is good for my mental health and simultaneously.
Yeah, which I think, from an outsider's perspective, I think you do really well. And we'll get back to that later about some of your art and stay derpy, your slogans and some of that. But yeah, I think it's a challenge for pretty much 95% of the people I chat with have their own different way that it's challenging them.
Yes, I had to set those boundaries. And the first opening weekend was absolutely insane. I definitely was having panic attacks the whole weekend of just like, my notifications are blowing up. Everyone and their mother is reaching out to me. And I just had to turn all the notifications off. I had to get help so that I could have a barrier. So that I'm not the one engaging and reading all of that all the time. So now even still when I engage in social media, I'm trying to do it through third-party platforms. So there's still a level of separation of I'm going to look at exactly what I need to do on social media, and I'm not going to look at anything else that is a distraction.
Right, because it is so easy to go down that rabbit hole and then, 30 minutes.
Or an hour. 30 hours. Gone by and you're like, oh, darn.
Yeah. Whoa, way to leave you on a cliffhanger. Okay, we'll be back with Maggie Robertson next week. Be sure to tune in. See you then.